Hi everyone, welcome back to another video. What we're going to be talking about today is how to level up as a software developer, right? How do you go from an intern or a junior developer or someone who's just learning how to code? How do you go to that next level? Maybe an intermediate, senior developer, or to get your first job? What are the steps you should take to kind of, level up from someone who's just learning, who's a beginner, to someone who's actually more experienced? And basically, I think there's a couple of things that you can do to help yourself out, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. As always, if you enjoy the video, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It's completely free for you. I really appreciate it, and you can always unsubscribe. That being said, let's get right into the video. So I mentioned this before on my channel, but one of the best ways to, level up as a developer is to really start a project, finish it, and then push it to production. So if you want to go right from someone who's just learning how to code, from someone who's just developing, different projects, and, just basically learning all the time, to someone who can actually build things and get things done and get things live in production, you really want to focus on getting a project from start to finish, finishing the whole thing, pushing it live, test it off, polish it, and you really get it to be a finished product. I'm not just saying get a proof of concept and push that live. I'm saying really polish it out, get tests, get the UI to look amazing, and get all the backend to be working, maybe if you're working with a database, whatever it is, but really get a polished product and push it live, right? It's really easy to, when you're working on a project, to really get confused and get overwhelmed, and then you quit after a week, right? I've done this so many times. I've started a certain side project, and then I would quit, I would get overwhelmed, and then I basically, would start another project. And then what you get into is this never-ending cycle of, you're learning, you're building projects, but what you're missing is the most important part, and often the most difficult part is finishing the project, getting it to a point where it's complete. And really what you have to do is just, at every step of development, you want to keep going. You want to just not give up. If there's a certain thing that you can't fix, or there's a certain bug you're facing, or whatever it is, a problem that you can't solve, the important thing is you got to figure out how to solve this problem, right? Go online, go on Stack Overflow, ask someone who's a developer, who's more experienced. Maybe if you're working with a group of people, ask for help. But really what you want to do is focus on how to solve these problems, because at every step, especially if you're a beginner and especially if you're a junior developer, often you're going to be you're going to realize, okay, what do I do? I don't know what to do. And the important thing is that you don't give up and that you actually keep going. And at every step, once you solve a certain problem and okay, I finished this, and then you move on, and then you run into something else, right? Because you inevitably will. You're going to get better and better at solving these problems. And over time, you're going to realize certain things are better for solving problems. You're going to realize different patterns in your head and certain ways of thinking, and you're going to get a lot better at solving these problems. And if you can do this for one project, right, you can do this for any project you want. So in your first project, it's going to be very difficult, and you're going to, struggle a lot with figuring out certain bugs and getting over certain hurdles. But then, once you finish your first project, it could take weeks, it could take months. But once you genuinely start it and get it to a state where it's truly complete, everything is really done, you're going to realize that, okay, you did it for this project, you can do it for any project, right? There's nothing really stopping you because you didn't give up, and you're actually, at every hurdle, at every obstacle that you face, you tried, and no matter how long it took, you overcame it, right? Like I said before, I think getting a project to the complete state where it's polished, where everything's looking good, when there's no bugs, right? Zero bugs, and it's working properly, people are using it, that's the hardest part, right? It's like the 80-20 thing where 20% of the work takes 80% of the time, right? The last 20%, when you think you're done, you're so close to being done, that ends up taking a lot longer than you think. And in my experience, it's the hardest part. It's, at the beginning, you're setting everything up. It's more, you're testing things out, and you're breaking code, you're fixing it. But then once you have everything working, getting it to that perfect state where you're okay, it's ready to go, that often takes the most amount of time. And that's when you're going back and forth, you're fixing things, you're perfecting certain things in the app. And I honestly think that if you can get past that last hurdle, which is, like I said, the hardest part, I think that'll prep you so much for, the future. It'll make you so much more confident, and you're going to realize that, okay, I got this project to completion. I can really build anything because you'll know that you know how to solve problems. You're not going to give up. And no matter how hard the problem is, if you develop the right strategies, you can actually finish a project. And having this confidence, having this understanding, this experience is so important to, going from someone who is a beginner developer to someone who's more intermediate, more senior, and it really helps you out on all fronts. Not only that, but when you push something to production, right, you have a live app, whatever it is, an iOS app, Android app, website, anything you want. at some point you're going to have to update it, right? At some point there's going to be bugs. At some point, especially if you have users, using the app, there might be new features that people want. There might be bugs that, like I said before, that people discover. And maintaining an app is just as hard as developing it from scratch. If you can learn how to, maintain an app, how to update, how to, have different versions, and use version control, stuff like that, that's also super relevant experience. Because let's say if you're trying to get a job, right, the odds are there's already a developed app that's complete, and you're just adding on to it, right? And if that's the case, you really have to get good at maintaining certain projects and updating them without breaking it for older users, right? So a very, difficult thing to do is, right, let's say you're updating an iOS app, right? And you're adding new features, but not everyone's gonna get that update right away, right? People might like the older version, or for some reason they're not updating the app, they don't have automatic updates, whatever. So you're releasing an update, and there's a lot of things going on, but for older users, you wanna make sure that it's still working for them. And that's really difficult at times. You really have to have like a good architecture in place. And so if you can get really good at maintaining your app, at releasing several versions, every year, every month, whatever the time frame you decide is, that's super valuable experience, and that's definitely going to level you up as a developer. Right in the past, during my internships, things that I've done is like I watched, certain more experienced developers, push something live. I had no idea how to do something like that. How does something really go from just being a local thing in like a test server to going to production and pushing it live to a ton of users, right? I had no idea how to do this kind of stuff. So I just kind of watched and asked more experienced developers, how do you do that? They showed me like the whole process. And even after the first time I watched it, I'm like, what is going on? I have no clue. But the more you expose yourself to it, the more you're gonna learn and the better you're gonna get. And this kind of leads into the next thing you can do to really level up as a software developer. And that's to work with someone that's more knowledgeable than you, right? If you're at a job and you're a junior developer right now, you're probably working within a team, and there's definitely more experienced developers with you that you can ask for help, that you can, ask for advice, that you can even pair program with. And what that lets you do is it lets you absorb their knowledge, right? Let's say you're planning a certain feature, or you have a certain task and you're planning it out, you have a diagram, or you have like a list of different features, the ways you're going to implement them, and you basically have a strategy of how you're going to go at it, right? Now, a great thing to do at this point is run it by someone with more experience. Oftentimes you're going to show someone your plan at building an app, right? Let's say, and then they're going to look at your plan and instantly see some flaws, some places that can be improved. I'm not saying that you're a bad developer, but just like everyone can improve in certain ways. And so, if you run it by a more experienced developer, right away there's going to be things that you're doing unnecessarily, some things that you're doing incorrectly. It's like, why do this when you can use a simple framework and it does all the work for you? And that's just an example. But when you're working with a more experienced developer, they definitely have more knowledge than you. And if you run by your strategy, it'll definitely save you a lot of time before you even start implementing, because you'll adapt your strategy, you'll change it up. And then by doing so, you'll avoid mistakes, you'll avoid potential bugs, you'll be introduced to new frameworks that maybe you didn't know before, and then you're going to use them, and your life is going to be a lot easier. And at the same time, you're going to be becoming a better developer because you're learning all these different ways to work kind of smarter and not work harder. Another massive thing that, working with someone that is more experienced than you can help you with is actually debugging code. So by debugging with a more experienced developer, you're going to be introduced to certain tools that they're using, certain strategies that they're using to really dig into their code. And debugging is a very important part of software development, right? If you can't get good at debugging, and if you're kind of lacking in that area, really understanding how to debug and different ways to find a bug, find the source of a problem and fix it, that's so crucial to being a software developer. It'll make your life so much easier, and you're just going to get better at the entire process, because once you run into a problem, you're going to know exactly what to do to maximize your chances of finding the bug. You're going to know different strategies to use to find it and solve the problem. And the best way to do this is learning and absorbing the knowledge from a more experienced developer who, odds are, have debugged hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of different bugs throughout their career, right? When you have someone that has done it for so long and that has done it so many times, it really is kind of like a second nature to them. And it's so valuable to absorb this knowledge from them. If you're, running into a bug, you don't know how to solve it, ask someone for help. They'll come over, and they're not going to instantly give you the solution, but maybe you can get a certain strategy from them. You'll be able to see how they're debugging and kind of emulate that in your own process. And I think that's a great strategy to use, guys. I think if you can do that, you'll definitely level up as a software developer. And it lets you understand how they think about certain problems. What their thought process is like when they run into a bug. What do they do first? How do they approach finding out what the actual problem is. And more experienced developers can also introduce you to, new libraries, new frameworks that kind of have already been developed that are doing similar things to what you want to do, or just, frameworks and libraries in general that'll help you out that you might not even have known that existed before, right? You didn't even know this was a thing, and they're giving it to you as, such a valuable gem of knowledge. And you're like, wow, I can use this in so many different places. And it's really just it's such valuable knowledge that you can get from someone who's more experienced than you. Now, obviously, if you don't have this kind of luxury of, having more experienced developers at your disposal, what you can do is, post as many questions on Stack Overflow as you physically can, right? If you're running into different problems, ask on Stack Overflow. Someone might answer it for you, and, it'll put you on the right track, or someone might point you in the right direction. But asking questions on Stack Overflow is pretty underrated in my opinion, and if you ask questions, someone might answer, and you'll definitely get some valuable information from there. And now, speaking of Stack Overflow and getting help and getting learning from other people, a great way to level up as a developer is to teach other people as well, right? I've talked about this before on my channel, but once you think you've mastered a topic and you think you're really good at a certain thing, try teaching it to someone else, because the odds are, you'll be explaining something and then you're going to realize, oh wait, what is this thing? On second thought, I don't know what this does. And teaching a certain topic to someone else can really help you master a certain topic. You might think you understand it fully, but if you try teaching it to someone, I guarantee you they'll have questions that you won't be able to answer at first, and then you'll have to go back and reaffirm your knowledge. Or if you're actually very, very knowledgeable of the topic, the more the questions they ask and the more you answer, the more you have a back and forth and you're explaining things, that'll solidify the knowledge in your head. And it's a great way to learn and to gain experience by teaching someone. I think it's a very, very good way of, solidifying the knowledge that you have and really understanding something better after you explain it to someone, right? Like different ways of teaching people. It could be a YouTube video, it can be a blog, you could just be talking to someone in person, writing things down and explaining it to them. No matter what way you decide to teach someone, I just think that, having a formal way, like formal things defined, and really have a process defined, and you're explaining something to someone in detail, all the technical parts as well. I think if you can do that and, get better at teaching people, it'll not only, improve your communication skills and stuff like that, but at whatever you're teaching, you're really gonna understand it more, and eventually you'll genuinely become like a master at whatever topic you're teaching other people. It's really easy to look at teachers and professors and stuff like that, and, someone's teaching you how to code or whatever it is, and then you're thinking, why is this person teaching, right? When if they're so smart, why aren't they working at a massive company, or why aren't they like some CEO of a startup or whatever it is? And people often give teachers too much slack, because to genuinely teach a topic and answer any question from students, and from a large amount of students, right? Classes range from 10, 20 people to in university you have hundreds of people, and any one of these people can ask you any question about the topic you're teaching, and to be able to answer it on the spot in front of an audience comfortably and answer it correctly, right? You're not just spewing garbage. That takes a great amount of experience. It takes so much time invested into this field, and teachers genuinely have so much knowledge at whatever topics they're teaching. And to succeed at a job like that, you really have to be the master at whatever topic you're teaching, right? And I genuinely think that teachers, professors and stuff like that, they have such a good grasp of the knowledge, and it's only gotten better because they've taught it for so long, and they've taught it for such, in front of so many people, asked so many questions. And there's a reason for that, because they're constantly teaching people, right? Practically, this could be at work. If you're working on a team, someone doesn't know how to do something, they ask you a question, you can help teach them, you can show them the process, teach them things. And again, if you don't have the luxury of having a team of people or other developers that you can talk to, then what you can do is just go on Stack Overflow, answer questions there. There's so many questions that people ask. And if you see something that you can answer that you can try explaining it to them, and then going back and forth. If they have more questions, or if you solve the problem, that's great. Answering questions on Stack Overflow is a great way to master certain topics, right? It goes from just a basic question to people post snippets of code, and they're like, could someone tell me what's going wrong here? And these kind of questions really help you get better at analyzing code. Analyzing code is super important when you're a developer. Looking at code and seeing where the problem is, where certain things can be more efficient, changed, and all this kind of stuff is priceless for a software developer, especially because a lot of software developers do code reviews, which is exactly that, right? Someone pushes code and then you have to read it before it goes live, before it goes to QA or whatever. You have to read it to see, okay, where can this code be improved? Where could there be potential bugs? and getting better at this kind of skill is awesome, and will definitely level you up as a developer. And you know, answering questions from other developers also lets you see how they think. It lets you see what kind of strategies other people use. It gives you kind of an outside perspective. You know, it lets you get out of your own head and kind of see things in a different way, because you think of certain problems in one way and you have certain strategies and patterns in your head that you use to solve a problem, but then someone else might be thinking a completely different way. And so, you know, you can learn from them when it just gives you a different perspective of different developers that are at different stages in their career. And I think that's pretty valuable. You know, you can learn a lot of things from answering people's questions, because it'll open up a new way of thinking, and you might be like, oh, that's interesting. I've never thought of a problem this way. And you know, you can implement that into your own life. So teaching people a topic is genuinely one of the best ways to master a topic and get really good at it. So guys, I really hope this video helps you out. I know it's a big struggle. You know, after you learn a language, you learn the syntax of a language and you're kind of, you know, good at it. You always think, you know, now what, right? I've learned the language, I'm a junior developer, I can build things, but how do I really improve? How do I level up, you know, into an intermediate senior developer that can, you know, push their own code, that can really build something? And I really think that the best ways to do that are, you know, starting a project from start to finish, getting help from more experienced developers, and teaching other people, right? If you can, you know, implement all these three things into kind of your life and really work on all these three aspects, I really think you'll level up as a developer sooner than later, right? So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. As always, leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed. Leave a comment down below on ways that you think you can level up. If there's anything you disagree or agree with, let me know down below. And as always, guys, enjoy your coding.